Mysteries of the Mind.
Men of science today are exploring the hidden powers of mind, powers little understood and often referred to as psychic phenomena. It's for the purpose of studying these mysteries of the mind that WOR presents this unusual program, documented cases of strange mental happenings, collected by psychic investigator Hugh Lynn Cayce. Two eminent scientists are to give their opinions of the cases submitted. Dr. Henry S.W. Hardwick, organizer of the New York Psychic Forum and editor of the Psychic News Clip Letter, and Dr. Lucien Warner, psychologist and author on psychological subjects, formerly of New York University. Dr. Hardwick supports the psychic interpretation of these phenomena, while Dr. Warner suspects that all so-called psychic phenomena have a physical explanation. Listen to the stories about to be presented and the opinions of the experts. Then write and tell us what you think. With which side do you agree?
The story of Doris Stanley.
In the summer of 1934, Doris Stanley, a young woman of 19, arrived for a visit at the home of her mother's old friend, Mrs. Bedell, who lived in Rockland County, New York. There, at a party given in her honor, Doris met Roy Parker, a young man of 23, and the two fell in love. They saw one another frequently. And finally, on the last night before Doris was to return to her own home in Pittsburgh, they were out in the woods that rimmed the shoreline above the moonlit Hudson River. They were talking.
Roy, isn't this a glorious night? I'm so fond of the dogwoods. The light from that old moon on the water. Everything seems so quiet and so sort of sad, as though it was sorry this was our last few moments together.
Yes, I can sense it, too. And it makes it all the harder, Doris. There's something I have to tell you. It's going to hurt.
You couldn't hurt me, Roy.
I don't want to, but this can't be helped. But as much as I love you, we can't be married.
Why, Roy?
At least, well, not for a while anyway. Not for quite some time.
But, darling, why not? I thought...
Because, Doris, I'm not well. The doctor tells me that I have a tubercular condition.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry.
So am I, dear. More for your sake than for mine. I told myself I'd never fall in love, but I couldn't help it. Forgive me.
Forgive you? Why, Roy, dear, we'll always love each other. I know it. I haven't told you, but I'm not a well person either. I've never been well. But we have each other. We have so much to live for, and we'll make every effort to get well. Won't we?
Yes, sweetheart, of course, of course.
Doris Stanley returned to Pittsburgh, and the two lovers corresponded. Mrs. Bedell had a letter some weeks later from Doris's mother, informing her that Doris was greatly upset over the state of Roy's health. One evening a few weeks after, Mrs. Bedell came home and was surprised to see Doris standing on the darkened porch.
Why, Doris, what are you doing here?
I've come to see Roy.
But Roy isn't here.
He's on his way here. I'm waiting for him. He'll be here soon.
But, Doris, you didn't tell me you were coming. How on earth did you get here? Of course, I'm delighted to see you, my dear, but how in the world...
I'm waiting for Roy. He's coming. I'm waiting for
Doris,
him.
come closer. What's the matter, dear?
I'm afraid I can't stay. I've got to go. Roy! Roy! Roy!
Oh! Somebody come quick! Ella! Ella!
Yes, Mrs. Bedell. What's happened?
I don't know. Doris was here. I talked with her. She was asking for Roy, and then she disappeared right before my eyes.
Unnerved by this unexplainable experience, Mrs. Bedell was still shaken an hour later when a car drove up and Roy Parker came hurrying in. He appeared thin and ill and greatly moved about something.
Roy, I'm so glad you dropped in.
I had to come.
You what?
I tried to get here before she was gone.
Roy, then you knew that Doris was here. Oh, this This is too incredible. I saw her. She was standing here on the porch, waiting for you, she said. And then she just disappeared into thin air.
Oh, Doris, darling, I tried to get here in time. I knew you were here. I knew it.
Roy! Roy, wait! I want to talk to you. Wait! This is the strangest thing I ever... I wonder if something has happened to Doris. I wonder.
And now, presenting psychic investigator Hugh Lynn Cayce.
Something had happened to Doris, ladies and gentlemen. Doris Stanley had died at just about that time in Pittsburgh, having suffered a serious decline in health, brought on by her condition and worry over the illness of her sweetheart, Roy Parker. Mrs. Bedell received a letter within the next few days from Doris's mother, telling of her passing on the night that Mrs. Bedell had seen her on the porch of her home in Rockland County, New York. Within the same year, Roy Parker followed Doris in death. All right, Dr. Warner, how do you explain this case?
Well, Mr. Cayce, I'd begin by questioning the woman who had reported this experience. Mrs. Bedell was instrumental in bringing these young people together. She had a strong sentimental interest in them, naturally, and was undoubtedly concerned and overexcited because of their separation and illnesses. It is quite likely, in turning the situation over and over in her mind, that she prepared the way for an hallucination. She imagined she saw the girl and heard her speak. Then Roy happened by, and she excitedly started to tell him of her experience. In her excitement, she may have misinterpreted Roy's statements to her, or gotten Roy emotionally unstrung. You must remember he, too, was keyed up over the situation, and he may have decided that he had been impelled to visit Mrs. Bedell because Doris had been thinking strongly of him, especially after hearing Mrs. Bedell's story of what she thought she had seen and heard. Roy himself was so emotionally upset he hurried away without really explaining his own feelings. I think both of these people brought on what they may have considered a psychic experience through letting their emotions run away with them under the power of suggestion.
Dr. Hardwick, do you agree with Dr. Warner's opinion?
Not entirely, Mr. Cayce. I think Dr. Warner is assuming a great deal. Even granting for a moment his theory of suggestion and Roy Parker's chance appearance at the house at almost the time that Mrs. Bedell thought she saw and spoke to Doris, that does not explain the fact that Doris did actually die the night of this experience. Dr. Warner, would you say that this was simply coincidence, the fact that Mrs. Bedell had what you call an hallucination, and the fact that Doris died on the same night?
Isn't it quite possible, Dr. Hardwick, that Mrs. Bedell knew of the critical condition of Doris? If she did, this worry over her could easily have brought on the hallucination, and the time element would not then be so unusual.
Possible, Dr. Warner. It seems to me more likely that what Mrs. Bedell saw was actually a mental image of this girl who had passed on. This mental image had a peculiar quality. It apparently was able to carry on a conversation. Whatever we care to call it, the mind, the personality, seems to have returned to the scene of her love. This would imply survival of the human soul, the mind, or the personality. Love was the strong emotion, the driving force. Love, like mind, may be eternal.
You believe, then, Dr. Hardwick, that this was actually Doris's soul or spirit body which appeared at Mrs. Bedell's home?
You may call it that, Mr. Cayce. It is possible that whatever quality of mind survived death stimulated memory patterns in Mrs. Bedell's mind. The soul or mental image may not have been there in any form which we can measure or weigh, but the force, the power of the mind of Doris was there. The image may have been only in Mrs. Bedell's mind.
Well, Dr. Hardwick, so you're really admitting that she had an hallucination?
No, I didn't say that. I believe the force which produced the mental image was outside Mrs. Bedell's mind. I'm sorry we couldn't also have had Roy Parker's story of why he came to Mrs. Bedell's house that night, what impressed him to do it. It might have helped us better to confirm and explain this strange experience. But in my opinion, as evidenced by this happening, some force, some part of the mind of man lives after death.
Thank you, Dr. Hardwick and Dr. Warner. Ladies and gentlemen of the radio audience, with whom do you agree? What do you think?